So it's 7 p.m. Welcome everyone to Buddhism for Beginners, week 3. My name's Aleta, and if you would like to just put your name in the comment bar, that would be very nice for me to know who is listening and watching. We're going to start with an arrival meditation, just to help us to transition from what may have been a busy, stress-filled day, and maybe our mind has been a bit busy and reacting to the stress of the day. Give our body and our mind an opportunity to arrive in the present moment, to let go of anything that we've been worried about today or going around and around in our minds today. We can just put aside any thoughts of what came before, and we can always pick up these things at the end of the session if we wish. So welcome, Sue. I don't think I've met you before. Sue M, it's nice to have you here. So if you can just get into a comfortable position, and this could be sitting on a chair or kneeling on a meditation stool maybe, or sitting on the floor on a cushion, or it could be lying down. Whatever helps your body to relax as much as possible is a really good position. Once the body relaxes, then the mind will follow. So just get comfy. If you can keep your spine as straight as you can comfortably manage, helps the energy to flow through the body. And eyes can be closed to help stop any visual distractions in the room, I say as I'm looking around. Or you can just have your eyes slightly open, and the head should be just slightly tilted if you're sitting, just so that your gaze is directed about a metre in front of you on the floor. And just taking a couple of deep breaths all the way into the belly, if you can. And then just letting the breath flow into its natural rhythm. And just feeling the points of contact of our body with that secure, solid surface holding it. Just aware of all those points of contact of the body with that surface. And having a sense of feeling safe, secure, a sense of being held. And just for a moment, thinking about your initial motivation for being here tonight to listen to a bit about Buddhist philosophy and the Buddhist view, seeing if we can develop a positive motivation for our efforts tonight. And then we see if we can expand that motivation out so that anything that we may pick up tonight that may help us to be more kind, wise, calm, happy people may also help all those that we come in contact with to be happier, kinder, wiser people as well. And we could even expand it out so that, like a ripple spreading out on a lake, that this wisdom, compassion, kindness could spread out to the whole world, resulting in a more peaceful, compassionate, kind world. And just becoming aware of how the body is in this moment, noticing any areas of tension or tightness or discomfort without judgment, just noticing. And seeing if it's possible to release some of that tightness or discomfort with each out breath. And it can help to mentally say the word release on the out breath. And just imagining that tightness or discomfort or pain just being released with each out breath. And if it's not possible to release the pain or the discomfort in this moment, maybe we can just release a part of it. Or maybe we can just imagine what it would feel like to be able to release that pain or tightness with the out breath. And now just gently placing our attention on the breath wherever we notice it the most in this moment. It may be at the nostrils or on the upper lip. It may be the rise and fall of the chest or the rise and fall of the belly. Or it might be the complete wave-like flow of the breath. Wherever you notice the breath the most in this moment, gently placing your attention there and just observing each in and each out breath. And when the mind wanders, don't worry about it. That's just what minds do. When you notice the mind has wandered, just gently bringing our attention back to the breath, to the present moment, again and again. Just this moment, just this breath. Now, when we notice the mind is distracted by thoughts, simply be aware, recognize that we're distracted by thoughts, and just mentally label thinking, and then allowing the thought to fall away, bringing the attention back to the breath. Now, just noticing the state of the body in this moment. No judgment, just noticing how it is. Noticing the state of the mind in this moment. There's no right or wrong, it's just your experience. Becoming aware of the points of contact of our body with that solid, secure surface holding it. Aware of the touch of our clothes on our skin and the air on our skin. Noticing the noises inside the room, the noises outside the room. And when you're ready, feeling joyful and relaxed, gently open your eyes and have a stretch. I think it's very helpful to do mini meditations like that through transitions throughout our daily life. You know, when we get up in the morning, we might be able to do a short meditation or longer if we're lucky. Um, when we get to work, maybe we can do a very brief meditation in the car before we get out and go into the office or wherever our workplace is. Maybe we can do a short meditation at lunchtime, short meditation when we arrive home, in the car, maybe before we get out and go inside. You can start to build a practice of many small mindfulness meditations, and I find it really helpful. Helps us to maintain our mindfulness through the day, and maybe helps the mind to be more calm, not holding on to the problems and challenges that we have faced up until now. Now there's a transition, there's a change. We can let go and have a fresh mind moving on to the next part of our day, if that makes sense. So, so there is a a student notebook that goes with this course, foundation course notes. If you would like to get a copy of that At the end of the session, I'll put my email address in the comment bar, and if you'd like to send me an email, I can send you a soft copy of that by email. It's quite a good booklet written by Miffy Maximilian, who is the director of a Buddhist centre up in Brisbane, Longri Tumpa Centre, which is a sister centre of the Vajrayana Institute at Ashfield in Sydney, who is putting on these YouTube streamings of all their meditations and classes at the moment. So even though we're in isolation in our homes, we're very, very fortunate that we have the benefit of technology and are able to do so much on our computers. And to me, being able to attend Buddhist teachings, Dharma teachings, meditations is really, really a worthwhile way to spend our time rather than watching TV or anything else which is not so meaningful, perhaps. So tonight we are talking a bit about in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, and we're going to talk a bit about rebirth, and we're going to look into the nature of the mind and maybe look at karma. I've just realised we're not actually looking at refuge this week. We finished that off last week, so we're going to be talking on rebirth, nature of mind and karma. And if there's any questions at any point, please put the question in the comment bar and I'll be very happy to address those questions if I am able. And if I don't know the answer, I will very happily refer it on to someone who is more knowledgeable and wise than me out at the Vajrayana Institute, and I can get back to you next week with an answer. So last week, we talked quite a bit about rebirth, and I said that we are not trying to convince you that rebirth is what happens after you die. We are trying to encourage you to investigate rebirth for yourself. And this is the way all Buddhist teachings are addressed. It's about getting you the Buddhist teachings to see if they make sense to you, if they're logical, if they are in accord with your experience. It's up to you. It's not just a matter of believing what you hear from the Buddha or from any Buddhist teachers. Always check up. So we said that there's no hard evidence that rebirth. I was going to say see you, but I can't see you, but it's nice to know you're there. So we don't have hard evidence to support the existence of rebirth, but there is quite a bit of anecdotal evidence out there. If you read stories or hear stories of people who can remember previous lives, that's fine, John. Excellent. But it is very helpful to explore your belief about what happens after you die and to investigate whether rebirth may be something which would be helpful to have an open mind to or to explore further. if we have an open mind or have an acceptance of rebirth, it may answer many other questions that we have in life, like why is there such unjust suffering that we see in the world? Why do I have such strong habits? Um, why do certain things happen to me? We can use our acceptance in rebirth as a basis for expanding our knowledge and listening to the Buddhist teachings. Rebirth is actually the basis of Buddhist philosophy, and without rebirth, many aspects of Buddhism don't make a lot of strong sense. Things like karma and cyclic existence and enlightenment really go hand in hand with that view that after death we are reborn, we go on. So, in a way, you can't get the full benefit of Buddhism without accepting rebirth as your working hypothesis, maybe. As the Dalai Lama says, his advice is to provisionally believe, investigate, and decide using logic. If you accept rebirth as a working hypothesis, you'll do what you can in this life to create the causes for a good rebirth. You will act with compassion and virtue. If it turns out that rebirth doesn't exist, then you will have created the causes for happiness in this life, and therefore die with a peaceful, positive mind that you were virtuous and caring and did your best in this life. If we don't believe in rebirth and so don't prepare for a next life, and then we find out that there actually is rebirth, then we're in big trouble. So if we accept rebirth, death, as well as our next life, if rebirth does in fact exist. So if you don't accept rebirth, then maybe you can think about what your view is of what happens after you die. You know, it's some people believe that there's just nothing after we die. And I've never imagined myself being able to accept a view like that. I just can't accept that concept that there could be nothing after I die. But that's totally up to you. You're the master of your mind. But maybe we could reflect upon whether it's actually a helpful view to accept, for example, nothing after we die. Is that going to help us to live a happier, more meaningful life this life? Or is it more helpful to provisionally believe in or accept rebirth? And that may help us to be a more positive, kind, compassionate person in this life, thinking ahead to our next life. So if we do accept rebirth, the Buddha taught that we can be born in other forms and in different realms, including the animal realm, hell being realm, ghost realm, and God realms, and the human realm. If we are reborn as an animal, many people seem to think that that wouldn't be a bad life, particularly people who have very pampered pets, dogs or cats maybe, and they think, what a life if I could come back as my pampered dog and just lie around doing nothing all day and being fed whenever I want and getting all the affection and not having to reflect upon what may be going on in an animal's mind in particular, it could be not as rosy as we think it is to be an animal. If we're reborn as a wild animal, obviously life is a lot tougher. You're always fighting for survival. Um, there's a lot of violence and predators coming after you to make it. We don't really know what sort of suffering goes on in a pet dog's mind. He may look like he's very content, but what happens when the family goes off to work in the morning? That pet could be really traumatized, thinking that everyone's gone and not having the intelligence to realize that they do actually come back at the end of the day. You know, if you could be inside your dog's mind, you might find that there's a lot more suffering there. A lot of animals suffer great anxiety over loud noises, fireworks. Um, you can see animals who run off when there are fireworks or thunderstorms, and they're clearly suffering a lot. They're very fearful. So the Buddha said that being born as an animal in the animal realm is not an ideal rebirth to have. It's a lower rebirth than having a human rebirth. The ghost realms, like hungry ghost realms, are definitely a lower realm to a human realm. There's a lot of suffering in those realms. Hungry ghosts, as an example, can never be satisfied. They have huge bellies to be filled with food, but they have very long, thin, knotted necks, so they can't even get the smallest amounts of food down their neck into their belly to feel satisfied. Hence, they're called hungry ghosts. They're always craving food, craving satisfaction, which they just can't get. The human realm, sorry, I'll talk just a little bit about the higher realm of the God realms, which is higher than ghost, hell realms, animal realms, but it's still not ideal. In a God realm, you have fantastic conditions. You have a lot of luxurious possessions. It sounds really good. You've got everything you want in these great outer conditions. But because you have everything that you want, there's no incentive or motivation to improve your mind, to develop compassion and wisdom. You're very satisfied to just go on with all these external pleasures that you have. So we're not improving ourselves. We're not going to be able to fulfill our potential of perfecting our mind in these God realms. And then eventually also that life will end. And then they say that there is great suffering to come from a God realm where you've had all those amazing outer conditions to a lower realm or another realm where you don't have those sorts of conditions out there. A lot of suffering. And I think if you look as an example at people in the world today, like billionaires or movie stars who seem to have so much wealth, so much luxury and material possessions, and then for one reason or another, they lose it all. And then there can be really great suffering for them. They say the higher you are, the harder you fall. So the God realm is not as good as the human realm. The human realm is actually the best realm that we can be born in. We have the potential. Um, if you look at mind states of different people in this human realm, though, in this world, I think we can see that there can still be people who have the state of mind of being in a hell realm here on this earth. We can see that there are people starving in third world countries. There are people who are born and live their lives in war ravaged countries, always in fear of being killed that day, of having our children killed in war. You walk out the door and you're scared that a missile is going to fall on you. That's could be seen like a hell realm here on this earth. Um, there are many people who are, I believe, and their conditions could be seen as hell realms. Even here in Australia, there are asylum seekers who have been in detention for 7 years on Manus Island, Nauru, and a lot of them are still in detention in Australia or in New Guinea. All they want is to seek refuge and safety, and for 7 years they have been in detention and are told that they will always indefinitely be in detention if they stay in Australia. That's a hell realm to me. But as a human, we do have the potential to perfect our mind. To have a human life is extremely rare, the Buddha said, in terms of ratio to other life forms. It is extremely rare to be a human. If you imagine what the number of all animals, insects, microscopic sort of creatures, how many of them are there compared to the human population, it is much rarer, more rare to be a human. But then, on top of that, we who have been in contact with the Buddha's teachings are said to have a precious human rebirth. So, a precious human rebirth is where you have a body and mind which is functional enough, and you also have access to Dharma teachings. So, you can actually learn the path to perfect your mind, which the Buddha has taught for us. And this is like winning lotto. Well, it's much better than that. But we've hit the jackpot to get a precious human rebirth, according to the Buddha. We have everything that we need in this precious human rebirth to become happy. We can practice virtue, practice developing our mind, our compassion, our wisdom to be able to gain a precious human rebirth again after we die. Um, or we can even become enlightened, perfecting our mind in this very lifetime. So, this is amazing, according to the Buddha. We put in great effort in previous lives to cause this precious human rebirth that we have now. We were generous. We lived a moral life, and we also prayed aspirationally to have a precious human rebirth. So we put in great positive effort in previous lives, which caused this precious human rebirth that we have now. And therefore, according to the Buddha, the Buddhist teachings, we shouldn't waste it. We should work on our mind to realize its potential. There's an analogy I like about how rare it is to actually have a precious human rebirth. They say if you imagine a small golden ring or a golden yolk floating on the surface of the ocean, could be anywhere in the world, of all the oceans, somewhere on the surface of the ocean in this world, there is a small golden ring. Then there is a blind turtle right at the bottom of the deepest ocean, somewhere in this world. The chance of that turtle coming up to the surface to breathe and just accidentally putting his neck through that small golden yolk, that's the sort of chance of us being able to get a precious human rebirth. So the odds are really stacked against us being able to get this precious human rebirth. It is incredible that we have it. And if you're Buddhist, then it's a great aspirational, inspiring view to realize how fortunate we are to have this. So we do our best. We do our utmost to make the most of this precious human rebirth. And we are working on our mind. That's what Buddhism is all about. It's working on our mind to realize its potential, to perfect our mind, to become awakened or enlightened. So when we go from one life to the next, if we accept rebirth, we are very subtle energy driven by the force of karma and our delusions. It's the mind that goes from one life to the next. The body disintegrates at death. The mind is what continues on. The Buddha said, what we are today comes from our thoughts and actions of yesterday. And our present thoughts and actions build our life of tomorrow. Mind creates our life. Mind creates our reality. So with this view, we aspire to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. And our mind will go on to another life. So we practice being compassionate and kind to help ourselves and others to be happy. And ultimately, we can aspire to help every being to be happy. We can aspire to help every being to realize their own potential to perfect their mind. That's the big view. And this is a really meaningful use of this life if we have this aspiration. So, what is mind? What is the nature of mind? We all comprise body and mind, and we know that there is a close link between body and mind in this life, but the continuity of mind is what goes from one life to the next. What is reborn is that continuity of mind. The body is made of matter, physical matter. The mind is not. And this is really what Buddhism is all about, is reflecting upon and getting to understand the nature of mind. There's no commonly accepted scientific definition of mind. Electrical activity in the brain corresponds with mental experience, but this is not proof that the brain is the mind. It's only evidence that the mind is functioning. So scientists have never actually found in the body or in the brain, this is the mind. For over 20 years, the Dalai Lama has engaged in mind and life dialogues with influential scientists around the world, especially in the mind sciences, exploring links between Western science and Buddhism, or Buddhist view, in an effort to better understand the mind, the human condition, and to promote well-being. So the Dalai Lama is very interested in the scientific view and having these talks between scientists and Buddhists, helping each other. The Buddhist view is that mind encompasses such things as consciousness, emotions, thoughts, concepts, instincts, and perceptions. Lama Yeshe, who was one of the founders of the FPMT, who is the group of Buddhist centres of which Vajrayana Institute is a part, a wonderful teacher, Lama Yeshe. He said, the mind is a kind of formless, colourless energy, the energy of thought or consciousness. So the Buddhist definition is often traditionally stated as mind is merely clear and knowing. The clear part of that definition means that the mind is not material, it's not part of the brain or the body, it's not physical. You can't open up the body and locate the mind. The knowing part of the definition is talking about the mind's function. So it has the characteristic of knowing or experiencing things. The mind can know or experience things in different ways. One way is through our senses: seeing, hearing, smell, taste, touch. Did I say that? Anytime we see or hear something, though, it's not the sense organs that's actually having the experience. It is the mind that's having the experience of hearing or seeing or touching. So, for example, an ear captures vibrations in the environment and then transmits them via the auditory nerve to the mind that converts those signals into sound. So the mind is having the experience of hearing. Another way that mind can know or experience things is through thinking, and memories, remembering things. This is all part of the mind, or part of the function of the mind. Mind also includes emotions, joy, love, anger, etc. They're all part of the mind as well. So, mind is like a category of all the many different kinds of experiences that we have: perceptions, thoughts, feelings, emotions. The mind isn't some kind of organ which is sitting within us. It is compared to a river or a stream that's constantly moving and changing. Each experience of mind lasts just a moment and then it passes. Then the next one arises and passes. So we try to get the image of a mind as a constantly flowing stream of experiences, not as a solid thing in the body having experiences. The Buddhists say that the mind also never stops, even when we're asleep or in a coma or unconscious. We still have some form of experience in the mind. So the mind is still functioning, even if it's just darkness or blackness in a coma or when you're unconscious. It's still functioning. The mind is still functioning, still experiencing. So the mind is experiencing continuously. Also, the mind is beginningless, in that no matter how far we trace back, we cannot find a beginning to our mind. And this is often seen by people as a difficult concept to get your head around, to get your mind around. But it's similar to the number line, which goes infinitely in negative direction and infinitely in positive direction. The mind is beginningless and endless, just like that concept of infinite numbers. There's no, there has to be a cause for something in this moment. So you can't just have a beginning to mind that comes from nothing. There always has to be a previous cause. That's why it's beginningless and endless as well, but not so solid, like a constantly changing stream of experience. Another distinctive feature of mind is that it has the capacity to observe itself. Meditation is a function or activity of the mind, and through meditation, we observe and work with the mind. We become aware of thoughts and motivations, and we can start peeling away the mind's delusions of negativity to reveal our pristine Buddha nature. Buddha nature means our potential to perfect our mind. And every being that has a mind has this same Buddha nature, potential. to perfect all our positive qualities to the utmost and to eliminate all our negative qualities. And then we are a Buddha ourselves. A Buddha is just someone who has perfected their mind. So at the moment, our mind is polluted with confusion and afflictive emotions, like a polluted sky. We can clean the sky. It's not broken. We just need to stop pumping the negativities in. When we work with our mind, applying Buddhist tools, we start to not identify with the delusions in our mind, but with the spacious purity, our Buddha nature. And I think it's interesting we can see at the moment with this pandemic and no planes in the air and a lot less pollution in the air, the sky has actually been clearer, hasn't it? We can see that the nature of sky is not the pollution, just like the nature of our mind is not our delusions and negativities. Our innate nature of mind is pristine. So they say that it's as if now we're looking at everything with pink coloured glasses. If we have pink coloured glasses, we see everything as pink. We don't see things as they truly exist. When we have realizations and we become enlightened, we perfect our mind, it's merely like taking off those pink glasses and we see things as they truly are, with wisdom and compassion. So, are there any questions at this stage? Feel free to put any questions because we're going to move on in a moment to talk about karma. So if you have any burning questions about rebirth, go for it and I will try to answer. I always really loved having interaction with students, feedback from students, questions from students. When I was presenting these classes in physical form at the Vajrayana Institute, it was really, really helpful for me, and I hope for the students as well, to have that questioning and investigating our questions together. I learned a lot from hearing the questions that the students have. So it's quite different now teaching on YouTube, that you don't have that interaction where someone can't just put up their hand and say, hang on, what about this? And how does that work? And it's, oh, there's a question. Yes. Oh, it looks like it might be too hard for me. So, what is the source of consciousness or mind? I think I'm going to have to refer to that one, and you're going to have to come back next week so I can give you an answer. What is the source of mind? I'm tempted to say that since mind is beginningless, there is no source. But I know that's not a very satisfactory answer. And I know that people yearn to have a source. We like to have a start. This is where it came from. And maybe a lot of people like to have an end as well. This is where it's going. Uh, and I think it's not as simple as that. So I will definitely ask for input from one of the teachers at VI to that question, but I don't think you're going to come up with a clear, this is definitely the answer. I think it's something that we have to reflect upon, and maybe it's a practice of developing our mind and expanding our mind so that eventually we can understand that answer ourselves, if that makes sense. Sorry, I understand the brain is an organ. Fascinating then how we think and emote, etc. It's all fascinating to me. And it's, as I said, understanding the nature of mind is actually what Buddhism is all about. So it would, I'm always asking my teachers to just give me the answers, to stop making me have to think and reflect and work it out myself. But I know that it's actually a process where we do have to put in the work and experience and find the answers ourselves. I don't know if that sounds like a bit of a cop out, because in a way it is, because I don't know the answer. But I'm also sure that we have to put in a lot of effort and reflection and working on our own mind to understand the nature of our mind. That's what it's all about. Thank you, really. I think you're being polite. But I will let you know what one of the teachers says next week. Um, okay. So if you don't have any other curly questions for me soon, we'll move on to karma. The Buddha says that we are propelled to our next rebirth by karma and delusions. So we will explore the Buddhist view of karma. And the word karma is used in different ways these days. The word karma is a Sanskrit word which actually means action. But when we talk about karma, we're usually talking about the law of karma, which is a natural law of cause and effect. So every action that we perform has an effect. If we do a positive action, we will experience positive result eventually. If we do a negative action, we will experience negative result eventually. Positive actions are actions that we do with the motivation of helping others or ourselves to be happy. Negative actions are where we have the motivation to harm ourselves or others. Um, so the effect of karma is not like a punishment reward system, which I think a lot of people tend to think of it that way. It's more of a natural law, like the law of gravity or the law of nature, the natural law. So our effects of the actions that we create are experienced in the terms of our experience in this life, our external reality. Some people also confuse karma with the concept of fate, that everything's predetermined. And this is a total misunderstanding of karma, the law of karma. The very term karma is a term of active force, an action. So this indicates that future events are within our own hands. We cause our future. And we always have the choice in which actions we perform in this moment. So if we have very tough, challenging conditions at this moment in our life, this is not fate, and we always have the option of responding in a positive way, even if it may seem to be very hard to be positive in certain negative situations. We do always have that choice. So we are always determining how we respond and how we will create the causes for our future. So it's not fate. We are responsible for what's happening to us now as a result of all our past actions, and what we do now causes what happens to us in our future. They say if you want to know your past, look at your present. And if you want to know your future, look at your present. So where we are now is a result of all our actions up until now, and our future is a result of what we're doing now, what our actions of body, speech, and mind are now. So understanding karma means taking full responsibility for our life. There's no place for feeling a victim in karma, the law of karma. We've brought all this upon ourselves. We can't blame others for our problems. Every experience comes from my own actions in the past. This can seem quite confronting, shocking, harsh to some people when they first understand what karma's all about, particularly people who have really tough circumstances at the moment. It can be very confronting or tough for them to try and accept that these horrible conditions are what I've done in the past. And I can totally understand that. But it is also at the same time very empowering, I think, to have that view of karma. We are truly masters of our life, of our future. So it's not punishment of some outer source because we did something to harm someone. It's us, it's our responsibility. It's our responsibility what happens to us in the future. If you have any questions, feel free to jump in. I find it really empowering to know that we have the power to create a positive future. And we can rejoice in what we've done in the past, positive actions that we've done to get what is a precious human rebirth right now. Um, and a lot of people have problems accepting karma when they have those really tough conditions. But if you can focus on what you actually have right now to be grateful for, rather than focusing on what could be really, really tough and challenging, then you can be grateful that you've actually done many positive actions in the past to get those positive aspects of your life. And there's definitely no place for judging other people um, who have tough conditions now. It's when, as Buddhists, we should never have the attitude of, oh, well, it's just their karma. That is totally, I can't really say not acceptable because it's up to you, but it's totally not what we should be aiming for with the Buddhist view. We should always have compassion for people who are suffering. And we can also remember that if we have each been around for beginningless lives, we have all done many, many negative things in the past. We've done positive things, we've also done negative things. And while we may have good circumstances at the moment, in the future, maybe in this life or in future lives, we are going to get results of negative actions that we did in the past. So we don't feel guilt over those past negative actions. There's no place for guilt in Buddhism. It's more just seeing it as mistakes that we've made because we are not perfect. So we have some ignorance, we have some delusions. We're not perfect, so we make mistakes. We do things that harm people, and then we get the consequences. It's just a natural law. So there's no beating ourselves up, no feeling guilty, no judging others. We can have compassion for others who have suffering now, knowing that we know what suffering is as well, and we're going to have suffering in the future as well. So we can have empathy for people when they're suffering. I find that really helpful as well. So karma really is all about intention or motivation that goes with the action. It's not so much the action as the motivation behind the action which determines the effect that you get. So if you do an action with the intention of helping, but maybe it backfires and it actually harms the person, you still get positive karma because your intention was to help. You had a positive intention, you will get a positive effect. Um, and it gets a bit tricky because a lot of our actions are not purely with positive motivation or purely with negative motivation. There's often a mix of some positive and negative motivation for our actions. So the karma that we're going to get some negative, some positive. So it's really, really useful to always be examining reflecting upon what our motivations are when we're doing actions in this life. I might be doing something very that appears outwardly to be very generous, but maybe there's some motivation mixed in with generosity where I wish to be seen as a generous person so that people like me. That's not all positive. That's not about helping other people. It's about getting something for myself. So there's some self-cherishing there. So it's not a purely positive motivation. So you're not going to get purely positive effect from it. And so it's really, really good to be mindful of why we're doing things and really examining our motives and seeing if we can develop more positive motives for everything that we do with our body, our speech, and our mind. The tricky part of understanding the effects of karma is that there is usually a time delay, and it can be a very big time delay in between the cause, the action that we're doing, and when we get the effect. We may not get the effect for many lifetimes to come. This makes it very hard to see karma in a simplistic way. If we did a negative action and immediately felt pain, if we were selfish and then we got donged on the head instantly, it would be easy to do the positive thing all the time because we would get that reinforcement of I get angry and I get pain. If we could see it like that, it would be simple. But it's not simple, it's very complex because we are acting every moment with our body, our speech, our mind. We have thoughts all the time. If they're conscious thoughts where we have a motivation, maybe we're plotting to harm someone, we will actually get karmic effect from that, even though we're not physically acting. If we plan revenge on someone, this is what I'm going to do, and we really have the intention to harm this person, even though it's just thinking, we will get karmic effect. So we're creating karmic causes just constantly, many karmic actions in every moment. So for all those effects to come back to us is like a big, I don't know, what's the word? Like a big omelette of just all the actions coming at different times, lifetimes away, possibly. So they say that to see the full effect of karma, you actually have to be enlightened, you have to be a Buddha to be able to see the full karmic consequence of a person's life, for example. It's very complicated. Um, so, Sue, are you able to just let me know if you find karma to be logical? If you could just put a very short comment in the comment bar, if you're still there. I'm not sure if you just put yes, thank you, or it was a while ago. It doesn't tell me what time. Okay. I think it's very, very helpful to me to have the view of karma. It really helps to motivate me to be the best version of myself that I can be, and to try to develop positive motivations for what I do, and to take responsibility for negative actions that I do rather than blaming others. In the past, before I had the view of karma, of accepting karma as a natural law, if I got angry at someone, I would totally blame the situation on that person. I would just, in my mind, I would be totally focused on what they had done, which was unfair, and totally I didn't deserve it, and how dare they, and my mind would have gone around and around and around, just blaming everything on that person out there, and I wouldn't have even considered a lot of the time what role I played in that action, or what role I played in my own suffering. I would just blame that person. Now that I accept karma and try to reflect upon the consequences and the effects of karma in my daily life, it to grow spiritually, to grow as a person. It's if you blame everything on people out there, then it's very hard, I think, to grow and become a better version of yourself. Um, So I think my life is much more meaningful now with this view of accepting karma, or tools and methods to help us to develop our mind, and to eventually we can actually perfect our mind if we hang in there, if we keep putting in the joyous effort, they call it. Okay, so the law of karma means that certain causes bring about similar results. Is this true in physics, biology, technology, psychology, or any other ology there is? Is it scientific that causes bring a result, an effect, a similar result or effect? If I push hard enough, anything will move. Action, reaction. If I plant rice, I don't get potatoes, I get rice. So the cause gives rise to similar results. When I behave cruel to others, what results can I expect? A similar result to myself. When I'm kind to others, what results can I expect? Positive result. If karma exists, I am my own judge. I'm not being judged by an external source. I am my own judge because only I decide my future. So we don't have hard evidence that the law of karma exists. Um, as I said, it gets very complicated because we don't get that effect straight away. That's what makes it so hard to understand. And again, with rebirth, if you don't accept rebirth, then karma really doesn't make sense. we can see that there are people who have really, really tough conditions, a lot of suffering in this life, and they may be extremely kind, caring, positive people, but they just seem to have so much suffering in this life. If you accept rebirth, then you can accept that they will get the results of being kind in this life. If not this life, they will get it in future lives. So it all makes sense together if you have those views of karma, law of karma, rebirth. Um, it all ties in and makes sense. Dalai Lama says, from the scientific view, the theory of karma may be a metaphysical assumption. And I had to Google metaphysical. Metaphysical, according to Google, is philosophy that examines the fundamental nature of reality. So I'll read that again. From the scientific view, the theory of karma may be a metaphysical assumption, but it is no more so than the assumption that all of life is material and originated out of pure chance. A lot of people do have the view that everything is just pure chance in this life. Is that view helpful? I think not, because if you think if everything just happens by chance, you're not motivated to be kind to people. You may think that if you do the wrong thing, you're going to get away with it. It's all just chance. I don't think it's a helpful view. It's not helping to develop good intentions, positive intentions, to help ourselves and to help others to be happy. We have less motivation for doing positive things to help people. So, although we don't have the hard evidence that the law of karma exists, it can be a very helpful view to have, I think. Helps us to grow and evolve spiritually, to perfect our mind, to develop our mind, to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. So this law of karma we can use as a working hypothesis. And this promotes our well-being now in this life and motivates us to make the best use of this precious human rebirth that we have. Time always gets away. That's karma. Okay, so 4 minutes. Any questions in 4 minutes while I decide how to finish up then? We'll have to speak more about karma next week, because it's a very meaty, juicy subject. I'm fascinated by the law of karma, and I've always found that students in the past have had a similar sort of fascination to learning about karma, but mainly just looking at how karma plays out in our own life. Nothing from Sue. Thank you for tonight. Thank you for being here, Sue. I would like to suggest for you, Sue, and for me, and for anyone else who may watch a recording of this, that we do some reflection on karma just throughout our daily life, just being more mindful of our actions and thinking about particularly our motivation when we do actions, because I said that often there are mixed motivation, some positive, some negative. So I think it's really good to examine motivations and then think about, okay, so there was some positive, some negative, what sort of karmic result may I get from this sort of action? And maybe we can think about how we could transform some of our motivations to be more positive. Maybe just having that thought that I'm going to get the effect of these actions in the future. Can I make it a more positive action? These tools are all about applying them in daily life in a practical way to help us to have a happier, more meaningful life now and in the future as well. Think about dedicating all our effort of being here tonight to listening to some of the Buddha's teachings, to hearing a bit about Buddhist philosophy, that our effort in being here and listening may help us to have a more meaningful, happy life. And may that help those around us to be more happy, more kind, more wise, so that we can all help each other to have a more just and caring, compassionate world. And thank you very much for being here with me. And stay in and stay safe for now. Bye. I'll put my email address there too, just in case you want that student notebook, or anyone else who watches the recording. If you send me an email to this email address, I can send you the notebook that comes with this course. No typos? No, that looks right. Hello, Sue. You stay safe too, Sue. Sue always pops in at the end of class, and I always get a big smile to see that you pop in, Sue. Thank you very much. So, bye, everyone. I hope you had a good lesson with Wai Chong tonight. Sue, did you? What was he talking about? No answer. Oh, yes, there's an answer. Makes her smile as well. That's good. Let's all just be grateful for what we have, and that may help us to smile more and make others smile. See you next week, I hope. Oh, Wai Chong was talking about karmic intent. I will have to watch that. So anyone who wants to know more about karma, Wai Chong is an excellent teacher, and I forget the name of what he's doing on a Wednesday night, but he is teaching on a Wednesday night at 7 p.m. as well, and he was teaching on karma tonight. So look out for the recording of that if you missed it tonight, and you might like to catch one of his classes on a Wednesday night in the future. And there's lots of other great lessons and meditations on the VI website as well. And I've gone over time. So bye.